Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon. How are you doing? I'm Renique West, President, co-founder of the Greater Augusta Black Chamber of Commerce. As you know, we are in election season here in Augusta, Georgia. I have two guests with me this evening that are running for candidate for Superior Court Judge for Augusta Judicial System. I'm gonna mess up that word. I apologize. Circuit. To say that properly, we have Judge Ashley Wright and also candidate Alexis Payne who are running for this circuit. So be sure you share this out. We want our citizens to be informed. Early voting started Monday, so we want to make sure you're getting out and vote and make sure you know who your candidates are. So we're going to start right here with our opening statements from each candidate, and we'll just kind of switch it around from each question to each question. I was just talking to the candidates as we were getting started here lately. So Judge Ashley Brown, I'm going to let you go first, and we'll be in the backstage while you do your opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Judge Ashley Wright, and I am a Superior Court judge here in Augusta. I have been on the bench for the last 9 years. Our circuit is called the Augusta Judicial Circuit, and it includes both Richmond and Burke counties. Previously, it included Columbia County, but the circuit was separated some years ago, and we are now a two-county circuit, which is not uncommon across the state in some of the less populated areas. My background is that I grew up in Augusta. I moved here when I was a small child. I went away and went to school, and when I came back to town, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but I ultimately determined to go to law school and make my career and my home here in Augusta. I've been practicing law now for what will be 30 years this summer. I started in the summer of 1996 as an assistant district attorney in the district attorney's office. During that time, I handled a number of cases, including trying approximately 100 jury trials. I have worked with jurors of all different kinds, both grand jurors and trial jurors. I have tried probably more than 100 bench trials to a judge, and those would be cases where the judge would make a determination about what happened. I've worked with all the different kinds of people who come into the courtroom, both jurors and witnesses, victims, defendants, family members. I've worked with law enforcement over the years. In the past, I have taught both lawyers in the private sector as well as prosecutors. I've taught the district attorneys as an adult, as the electeds, and I have taught assistant district attorneys over the years. In the past, I've taught behavior disordered children in a hospital environment. And I taught at Georgia Military College in the evenings for about 10 years for non-traditional students. So I've had a lot of experience in trying to educate the community and educate the public. And I think that's a lot of what lawyers do. My opportunities have been wonderful here in Augusta. I've enjoyed my time both working in the public sector and the exposure that it has given me to people across the community. I've been involved in a number of nonprofits over the years, focusing primarily on those that serve the most basic needs of humans, and those are shelter, food, and quite frankly, spiritual hope. And so I've worked with nonprofits locally. I've worked with leadership groups both in the Augusta area and at the statewide level. And I currently am on two boards, one of which focuses on meeting the uninsured medical cost of people with long-term or chronic medical concerns or disabilities, and one that provides need-based support to women in this area who are either trying to make ends meet, going through treatment for various types of chronic illnesses, or who are trying to get ahead and get their families ahead through education. And in some of those, we partner with some of the local nonprofits that you would know and hear about. And in some of those, we're partnering with the Medical College of Georgia and the Richmond County Medical Association, as well as Augusta Tech. Over the course of the last 30 years, I have served everybody in this community, and I have done so without regard to who or where they came from. And I'm proud of the record that I have built. I'm honored to have been entrusted with the support of this Augusta community for the last 15 years. This is my sixth election, my third as a judge, and then I had three prior to that as district attorney. I think this is a wonderful community, and I am very focused on keeping our community strong, both through building up our families and making sure that we are safe. Primarily, what I do is criminal in nature, felony criminal work. We also do a lot of domestic relations work in our courts. Those are divorces, protective order hearings, custody hearings, and many other types of things that affect the family. We know that every case involves a number of different people and that the impact that it has is far reaching. So I am happy to be here with you today, President West. I appreciate you reaching out last week and making this opportunity available to us. As you know, we have a place to be tonight, but I'm happy to be here with you today, and look forward to answering questions. Thank you for having me. And at the end, I will ask everybody for their support and their vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Wright. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I called you Judge Brown. I don't know where that came from. Maybe I'm thinking about James Brown. I don't know. So I apologize.
No worries.
You know where it came from. It's not even a brown on the screen. So I have no clue. But thank you, Judge Wright. And so, Alexis, I will go ahead and let you do your opening statement now. You are on mute, Alexis, if you're talking. Oh, she may be moving, so give her a sec.
I can't hear anything, but can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So
All
your
right,
open
if you can
statement is
hear me,
five
then I'm
minutes.
just going to talk because I cannot hear anything. I
Oh, wow.
can't hear you. I just saw your hands, but we're going to do this anyway. All right. So,
Okay.
my name is Alexia Davis Payne, and I have been an attorney in the Augusta area for the past 20 years. I'm originally from Texas. However, I came to Augusta in 2006 as a public defender. So I graduated from undergrad in Texas. I then went to law school in New Orleans, and Katrina was my very last year of law school. I was able to then, I went home for a semester while the city was rebuilding. And then I came to Augusta. One of the reasons that I came to Augusta was because the state of Georgia at that point in time had just started a statewide public defender system. And that public defender system was designed to revamp the way that um, the public was entrusted the attorneys that were representing those who were low income. And as a result of that, what has occurred is this is a little bit of a mess, but so. So I came to Augusta. I worked as a public defender for 12 years, and I worked in state court for a little while, and then I was primarily in Superior Court. And again, Superior Court is the judge, is the position that I'm running for, and where we handle felony matters, family matters. And so Superior Court is significant in that it decides who stays in our community and who leaves. The significance of my experience is that after I was a public defender for 12 years, I was actually able to start my own practice with two other women from the public defender's office, and we started Davis, Chapman, and Wilder. So I have been in private practice for the past 8 years, where I have actually represented people in family law matters. I have represented people who have been charged with personal injury in civil cases. And so that has given me a unique perspective that is balanced in my approach, because I have not only been involved in the courtroom for criminal cases, I know the distinct challenges that come with representing people as they are navigating their family concerns. I recognize that our families are not one size fits all. And as a result, what that means is that I have been able to come up with creative solutions to ensure that our families are represented and that people's voices are heard when they come into the community. Um, we have an opportunity in front of us because our community has been one that has been in crisis. And when I say crisis, I mean that we have so many people that are leaving our community. We have people that are that we need to so we need to get to a position where we are not only punishing people, but we are also finding creative solutions for them to move forward successfully. I believe that we have opportunities for partners to connect to organizations within the community. Okay. All right. So I've worked with the public defender's office. I have worked. I've worked with Boys and Girls Club, and I have also served in a number of different capacities. So I know it's important to move our community forward and the significance of representing people during difficult times. I believe in second chances, and that is a philosophy that I would like to bring to the bench. So I'm well qualified and I'm ready to serve.
Okay. Are you able to hear us, Alexis?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I just want to be sure, because if I need to separate, I can, like maybe the forum. I just want to make sure everybody has clear chances to answer the questions.
Yeah, I can hear you now. But it's okay. Alexia. I wanted to.
Alexia. Sorry. Yeah, Mrs. Payne. Maybe I'll say okay. Mrs. Payne.
That's fine.
Okay. So are we good? We're ready to go? Or do you have to travel,
yeah.
Mrs. Payne?
Yeah, we're gonna travel, but I'm okay. We're good.
Are you sure? You wanna?
I'm good.
We could. Okay. I just want to be sure. I was like, we
can.
We're good. Okay. So
we're good.
I'm gonna move on to our first question, and then it's a 3-minute time limit for the next question. Okay.
Okay.
Afterwards. So the first question is going to be, and this is going to go to, we'll start with Judge Wright. We'll deal with Mrs. Payne, and then we'll go back and forth. Okay. So how do you define the role of Superior Court judge when it comes to interpreting the law, and where does interpretation and overreach begin? Please give a concrete example of a situation where you believe judicial discretion is appropriate, and one where a judge must set aside personal judgment and strictly follow the law as written. So Judge Wright, you have the floor.
Thank you. That was a compound question and a lot to answer in 3 minutes, but I'll try to do my best. So the role of the Superior Court judge is to make sure that the law is being followed. This happens in court on a daily basis when we're looking at evidence, when we're looking at rulings, when we're looking at procedure, when we are looking for what the results are going to be. The law is generally written these days in plain English. That's been a goal of the legislature since before I went to law school, that we're trying to get away from legalese to make it a little bit more accessible to everybody. Most of the laws interact in a interlocking capacity, so that you pull from this one and you pull from this one and you add them in. I think the most important part of your question is, when does judicial discretion apply? And that is all day, every day, in every single case. The court is not there to be rigid. The court is not there to look for an end. You have to get through a process. You have to receive evidence. You have to assess facts. Argument helps the court to determine what law is appropriate. And then you move into the location where there might be an opportunity for the court to interpret which law applies, how does it apply, which part of it applies, and how are we going to utilize it to solve the questions before the court. I think a lot of that comes from exposure to thousands and thousands of situations, thousands and thousands of cases, and the ability to determine where on the spectrum this case might fall. But if a court fails to use its discretion, then most of the time it's really not doing what is appropriate. There are times when our hands are tied and we really can't do anything about that. So to the extent that there is overreach, as long as I'm not sure I really fully understand what that part of the question is, but If there is an overreach, then it means that the court has gone outside the boundaries of what the law says is appropriate given the facts and the information before it. I think I can conclude and you're on mute, and I appreciate that 30-second warning.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
was just coming back to say 30 seconds. I was like, you still got 30 seconds, so I wouldn't tell you to stop. Okay. Did you want to answer? You still got like 20 seconds. Did you want to answer the rest, or did you want me to restate the last part? Or you
Which
good?
was the last part?
The last part was one where a judge must set aside personal judgment and strictly follow the law as written.
Thank you. Personal judgment, it's hard to say that it really has no opportunity. We are trained professionals. It doesn't mean that we're inhuman. It doesn't mean that we don't have feelings. It means that we have to filter through them to do our job that is required of us. And it doesn't mean that it's easy. This is a difficult job, and we are dealing with large issues that impact people in a meaningful way all day, every day.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, so Alexis is getting repositioned, and while she get repositioned, I told her I would just continue with you and ask you the next question, and then that way she can come on later, and then I can ask her the same questions. So, next question, Judge Wright. We're gonna stick with moving on. Augusta has seen a troubling rise in juvenile crime, and many young people who enter our justice system as minors eventually return as adults. What is your philosophy on handling juvenile offenders who appear before you in superior court? And what responsibility does a judge have to interpret the pipeline from our neighborhoods to our jails before it becomes a life sentence? And I will go be in the backstage, and your time is now.
Well, first, let me start by saying that for the most part, the Superior Court does not address juvenile court. We do have concurrent jurisdiction over people who are under the age of 17 and charged with what is generally considered to be a crime, even though we use a different word for it in the juvenile court. We have appointed juvenile court judges who are in charge of handling those matters. There are a certain set of crimes where if a person is at least 13 years old and not more than 17 years old, then original jurisdiction lands in superior court. Those are the most serious and violent in nature offenses. They would be murder, rape, armed robbery, kidnapping with bodily injury, aggravated child molestation. Trying to think what the other ones are off the top of my head. But nonetheless, they are the most egregious of crimes. The district attorney's office is the one who brings the crime as charged. They decide do we continue to keep it in superior court or do we move it down to the juvenile court? The opportunities in juvenile court are much more holistic in nature. They have they have a lot more access to resources for family members as well as the person who might have been charged with the actual offense itself. And so that is a great opportunity for the pipeline to be interrupted, but that is being done through the juvenile courts. The superior courts don't have that opportunity at that stage. The rise in juvenile aggression is very concerning. I think that addressing it starts with the family at a very early age. It starts with that person's environment and how the family is being supported and where they are receiving that support, both from the community as well as from state-related agencies. Of course, getting children into school is a big goal. We want them to be occupied during the day, but we also want them to nurture their brains and be safe when they're doing that. To the extent that the court is concerned about the pipeline, absolutely. We're concerned about anything that puts people on a trajectory to going into the Department of Corrections. It is an unhealthy environment for people to live in, and it is difficult to come out of it in the same way that you are entered. Usually what the court does, and this is where judicial experience comes into play, is assess the number of factors that seem to be apparent. What is the risk to the community? Have resources been provided in the past? Is defects involved? Or is the person addicted? Do we have untreated mental health? Have we tried to get these people into resources that need them? And are they utilizing them, or are they turning away from them and continuing on the same path? So when the resources are available, we want people to use them. We want that to slow down. We want it to be an opportunity. We have a family treatment court that we're trying to grow in the juvenile court. We have no role in that. I preside over the drug court, and I think that is a great way for people to start challenging this pipeline mentality of that's not where I want to be. That's not what I want for myself and my family. And we have worked very hard on revamping it the last few years to make sure that is the best opportunity that we can present every single day.
Thank you for answering that question. Next question, Judge Wright. Defendants in Richmond County are sitting in Augusta State Prison or the Charles B. Webster Detention Center for months, sometimes years, awaiting trial, often for nonviolent offenses. This backlog costs taxpayers money, strains families, and undermines the principle that justice delayed is justice denied. What is your honest assessment of why our Superior Court docket has fallen behind? And what specific measurements, commitments would you make to Augusta residents to move cases to resolution faster?
Thank you for asking that. And understanding the reason for the backlog is complicated, but I can tell you it's down to a couple of things. Number one, when the circuit split, the number of judges was not strong enough. We only had 5 Superior Court judges to handle a high level of felony work. Number two, the COVID backlog prevented us from bringing jurors in to indict cases, which means that they could not move forward in certain types of crimes. The law specifies which types those are. Number three, the COVID backlog meant that we couldn't try cases that were already ready for trial. And so our jail population changed from sort of general felony to becoming a jail for only those charged with the most violent offenses. Then after that, we had a little bit of more of a hiccup with the hurricane and our inability to move forward with that as well. Our jail is designed to hold approximately 1,000 people. Right now, it holds approximately 1,300. What I can tell you is that consistently over the past year and a half at this point, we have been closing more cases than we've been opening in Richmond County. For example, in 2025, there were 1,571 cases that were filed and 2,070 that were disposed. In Burke County, there were 149 filed and 238 disposed. And so we are disposing more cases that are being filed. The majority of our cases that are criminal in nature, and it's not all the work that we do, we have other responsibilities, but the majority of our cases that are filed end without the utilization of a trial. They don't need a jury. In order to move along faster, I've actually participated in several things. Number one, during the COVID backlog, I got together with the then public defender and the then district attorney and came to an agreement about how we were going to provide certain information on the front end. The district attorney would turn over what is commonly referred to as discovery or the case file to the public defender at an earlier date so that they could start moving those cases that were allowable under law, and we did not completely stall. Number two, I've worked with the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. We used to call that Serenity or Georgia Regional. They've renamed it. But they reached out to a couple of the judges in both levels of court to see if we could work on the backlog of cases waiting for lawyers to present orders for their clients to start getting mental health treatment. It's not ideal to get mental health treatment in the jail. That's very stressful in a lot of ways, but at least there are resources that are being afforded to them at this time. Number three, even though we currently have approximately 300 more persons in jail than we are designed to have in the past year plus, that has really shifted from being 1,300 pretrial detainees to being approximately 1,000 pretrial detainees. And the other 300 people who are still incarcerated have either been adjudicated and are awaiting transition to a different facility or who are being held for another location and have not yet been transferred. That's about 200 of the over 300 people that we have, and the others are now misdemeanors. For a long period of time, people charged with misdemeanor offenses, particularly the family violence ones, were not being held in court. So I think that's a lot of information at warp speed. I hope it was manageable.
Yes, I think you did a good job of doing it at work speed. So I want to make sure I respect your time because I know you guys do have another forum this evening. So elect Mrs. Payne. I'm gonna say Mrs. Payne. So let's make sure I say it right. Can you hear us fine?
Yes,
Okay,
all
we can
good.
hear you fine. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, just we had a couple technology things happening. I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next questions. We're gonna rotate the questions and then I'll come back to you and let Judge Wright go once we get through all the questions. Okay. That's okay with everybody?
Fine with
Okay.
me.
So moving on to the next question. And thank you, Judge Wright, for answering the last question. I appreciate you. And we'll start with you, Mrs. Payne, for the next question, and then we'll go to Judge Wright to give Judge Wright just a little break now. A significant number of people cycling through the Richmond County Jail are there due to drug addiction or untreated mental illness, not violent crime. As a Superior Court judge, how will you use tools like drug court or mental health diversion to address the root causes driving people into our justice systems? And do you believe Augusta is investing enough in these alternatives? So I will turn the floor over to you, Mrs. Payne.
Great. So, thank you, and I appreciate your patience. Right now, we have, well, historically, we had over 100 people participating in our accountability courts, which include drug court. And now, and since our circuit has split, we have dropped to about a third of that number, which says a couple of different things to me that suggest that our accountability courts were filled with Columbia County residents and not Richmond County and Burke County residents. And so we were not fully being able to take advantage of these treatment and accountability programs in our two counties. But we have the capacity to treat more people than we currently are. And I think that we need to be doing so. We have a number of independent resources. What I would note is that the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities does not have bed space for many people at this point in time, so their funding has been cut. We have a lot of people that are waiting on their mental evaluations, and so we need to be shifting to find support from private providers in the community. Our community is filled with people who desire to provide services to ensure that their neighbors are doing well. And as a result, we need to be tapping into those resources to connect people to the options that are available locally. We don't need to be punishing people for their mental health illnesses. We don't need to be seeking retribution for people with addiction issues. We need to be connecting them to the resources that they need in order to be successful. And as a result, we need to be increasing the number of people that we serve through our accountability courts. We need to be mindful of how we are treating them and whether or not we are actually addressing the root causes of those issues. So when they come into accountability court, those courts are structured specifically to ensure that they are able to treat and address the unique circumstances and the unique sets of issues that people have with addiction issues, which means we know that they are struggling. We know that there's potentially going to be a relapse. What that does mean is that we don't send them to prison on their first violation. And so we need to be being careful about how we are treating the people that are in those courts and make sure that we're actually providing services for them to be successful.
Thank you for that response, Mrs. Payne. Judge Wright, do you need me to read the question again or are you good to go?
I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I will turn that same old question over to you.
Uh, I, th- I think the answer to the last question that I answered spoke a little bit about what we're doing with both mental health and with our jail population. We have a drug court, we have a a mental health court, and a veterans treatment court, and we are looking for opportunities for people to join these three different courts every single day. Statistically, the sooner somebody gets into a treatment court, the more effective that outcome is. Our treatment courts are voluntary. They are funded primarily by a state grant. We also have some federal funds, and we have some Richmond County funds. They are designed to be intensive outpatient treatment for people who would likely otherwise need to go into a residential environment. We really try to meet them where they are, is what we say, and make our court accessible to them by providing support in the community and making sure that they have the resources to get to treatment and that we are able to well care for them. We have moved our treatment court provider from Columbia County back into the downtown Richmond area, which is making it a lot more accessible, at least for our Richmond County people. It's still very difficult for many of our Burke County people because they may not have a car or they may not have a reliable car. It's a long way to come if you're trying to get to treatment and drug testing on a regular basis. The way that people come into the court has changed over the years to make it much more accessible. And that is now, instead of having to advocate for your client, a defense attorney is able to propose a client. The district attorney's office is the one who determines whether or not they are legally eligible to participate. And those opportunities have been expanded greatly in the last few years. Then we determine whether that person meets the need of intensive outpatient treatment, which is what we are required to provide by the state of Georgia, who is funding us. And if so, we bring them in. Our criteria over the years of our methodology of treating people over the years has grown and changed and evolved, and we are still trying to do that. Nationally, the trend is away from incarceration, and we understand, as I said earlier, it's hard to get treatment when you're in custody, and that is true. We have changed the way that we admit people, not only to allow the district attorney to basically have the discretion, but also to allow people with prior felony convictions to come in or to come in on a probation revocation. That is a direct pipeline away from the prison system. And that is something that allows more people to join us. We actually tried to partner with the Department of Pardons and Paroles. The Department of Pardons and Paroles tried to put together a program in 4 counties across the state. Unfortunately, they pulled the plug on that, even though we were ready, willing, and able. Our mental health treatment court is for people with severe, persistent mental health. And our Veterans Treatment Court provides additional support to people outside the services provided by the VA, regardless of how many years they served in the military, what branch of service they were in, or what type of a discharge they had. So if you know someone who needs treatment, please refer them to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Wright. And so this next question, we're almost done. We got 2 last questions left. But Mrs. Payne, you have to sit back because we got some questions for you. So Judge Wright, this question will go to you first. Richmond County's taxpayers are facing a $70 million jail expansion while our facility remains critically overcrowded. As a Superior Court judge, what specific actions would you take from the bench to reduce the jail population? And what justice reforms do you believe are most urgently needed right here in Augusta? I'll turn it over to you.
First, let me say that the canons of ethics would prevent me from speaking directly to how people should vote and whether that expense is justified or not. So I want everybody to understand that I'm limited in the response that I could give. I spoke earlier about some of the overcrowding, the reason for the overcrowding, and what the population at the jail currently looks like. I also spoke earlier about trying to get cases moved a little bit more quickly out of the jails, and the way that we had done some of that already. In my particular situation, what I have done is we have calendared cases a little bit differently than we used to. When we came out of the COVID backlog situation, or came through COVID and we're in a backlog situation, we prioritized having jail cases heard over pretty much everything else, which was an effort to reduce the population, to move the most serious cases, to allow somebody being held without a determination in their case, and to make sure that we were not holding people unnecessarily. I spoke a little bit about the mental health situation as well, where they're now able to get mental health treatment in the jail while they were awaiting transfer to a hospital if necessary, or transitioning into an outpatient. We have alternated now that our case count has come down. Some of the lower level felonies, we had a calendar in my court, and some of the other judges are doing it well as well, where we only handled drug offenses. And we gave a lot of notice, more notice than we normally do, about 3 or 4 months of advance time for people, most of whom were on bond, a couple who might have missed court and got arrested and needed to have their cases resolved quickly to be able to meet with their attorneys. We calendared about 100 cases, and about 75% of them got resolved through the course of that calendaring. We're continuing to do that and address some of those low-level felonies. We also did the same thing with the theft cases and some of the lower-level other cases that would require fewer witnesses to come in. What kind of justice reform do we need? Well, that's a very broad question. We need a lot. We need other people involved in trying to fix the problems that plague our community at all levels. The courts can't do it all for everybody. We are a resource, but we are not the only resource. We need children in school. We need families to support their kids. We need people to support the efforts of the community in moving us forward in healthy ways, where people are treated with respect, where people have expectations that they are meeting, and where people are focusing on keeping us safe, all of us, in the same way. And together, we are able to address those, but the courts cannot be the only answer to that. I worked on criminal justice reform under Governor Deal along with the state bar. We offered a lot more discretion to the judges to be able to fashion remedies. Through that process, the drug courts really were strengthened and became much more mainstream and, quite frankly, much more popular. It was important to that governor that they were offered in every circuit and every community.
Thank you for that response. And let me move up. So, Mrs. Payne, you need me to repeat the question. Unmute. Let's see. Make sure you unmute. Okay.
Yeah, if you could just, I want to make sure I hit everything. So if you could go ahead and repeat the question for me.
Okay, sure. Richmond County taxpayers are facing a 70 million jail expansion while our facility remains critically overcrowded. As a Superior Court judge, what specific actions will you take from the bench to reduce the jail population? And what justice reforms do you believe are most urgently needed right here in Augusta? And I'll turn the floor over to you.
All right. So I'm actually going to start in the reverse order. I'm going to start with the justice reform aspect of it. And one of the things that I have done throughout my career has been focusing on prevention. So we have 3 issues that tend to bring people in front of the court, and that is lack of economic opportunity, lack of educational background, and also the addiction issues. And so one of the things that I would continue to do as a Superior Court judge would be to focus on prevention, because if we can address the issues that bring people in front of the court, then we can keep them from coming in front of the court to start with. So I would remain active in the community. I've been on the Boys and Girls Club board for the past 10 years. I went through Leadership Augusta back in 2016, and I have chaired several classes. I chaired a class since then, and I have maintained being the chair, or at least a co-chair, of the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Day. And so my involvement in the community did not stop with my service through Leadership Augusta. And so, again, I have maintained active in trying to focus on prevention and keeping people from even coming in front of the court to begin with. Once people have ended up in front of the court, what I do think is important is that we are giving people bonds to ensure that they could come back to court, but also that people aren't sitting in jail just for being poor, just because they can't make a bond. A lot of the offenses that bring people in front of the court are due to economic circumstances, and putting a significantly high bond on them is not going to make them appear in court any faster. It's just going to make them sit in jail longer. It's going to place their family at risk, at more risk, and it's going to destabilize our communities even further. So one of the things that we need to be doing is to be reconsidering the bond amounts that we are putting in place. We can be moving people, and if they have drug addiction issues, we can be placing them on bond with conditions that they start addressing those issues. Many of the people that come in front of the court are a working class population, which means that they are living check to check, they're living bill to bill, and removing one of their family members from that household is again going to cause a significant destabilization. So we need to allow people to be on their work and employed as long as possible. That includes minimizing the number of times that they have to come to court without being productive. So we have, since COVID, we've been able to use forums like this, electronic appearances, remote appearances, and that will allow people to maintain their jobs while still adhering to their court obligations. And that will move some of those low-level offenses faster through the system, and will keep people from bench warranting and being able to keep their positions because they're not having to choose from appearing in court or feeding their family.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for answering that, Mrs. Payne, and thank you, Judge Wright. We have one last question for you, so I want to be sure. Thank you for first joining us today, and now we're getting ready to end. So you're going to have closing statements though after this last question. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that, and then also, Mrs. Payne, to stay back so we can get the other questions in. Okay. So moving right to the last question. Many Augusta residents, and this will we go to Judge Wright. Sorry, I did it first. Mrs. Payne first, and then Judge Wright. Many Augusta residents, particularly in our lower income and minority communities, feel that the Superior Court does not work equally for everyone. Given Richmond County's history with disparities in sentencing, cash bail, and access to legal representation, what would you do differently as a judge to rebuild trust with communities and transparency that have felt overlooked by this system? And what does meaningful justice reform look like to you right here in Augusta?
So I think my experience working directly and representing people with in that population, so that working class, that lower income population, as a public defender, gives me a unique perspective to immediately begin to build trust. I spent my career representing those people, standing next to them during their most challenging times. And so I understand the challenges that they're facing. I know that that is somebody's child. I know that that's someone's sibling. I know that that is someone's parent. And so my experience representing them brings an immediate level of healing, I believe, to the system overall. That is not, it's not about changing the face, but it is changing about the heart for service. It is about changing the connection that the bench has to those communities overall. And because I have spent such a significant portion of my career representing them and not prosecuting them, that gives me a unique perspective and a unique lens and connection to the community overall. So just changing someone, our bench has been dominated by prosecutors in the past. And so almost all of the prosecutors, except for one, have been former prosecutors, and that was one of their primary practice areas. And so I think that change of perspective brings a connection to the community that is different and presents a unique opportunity for healing. Our community has never seen someone with a public defense background on the bench, and what that brings is a knowledge and an intimate familiarity with the community that we haven't seen before. And so I'm excited about the opportunity to serve, and I think that that in itself is reform. And so when I came into the public defender's office, I came in from a lens of ensuring that everyone was represented, that everyone's rights were protected, that everyone's rights were respected, and so that that you had the ability to exercise your constitutional rights, that you weren't going to I don't believe that you should be punished for exercising your constitutional rights, to going to trial, to challenging the evidence, to making the state prove its burden. So I don't see any issues with that, and I think that by electing someone who has that perspective will immediately bring a different heart to the bench and will create a different opportunity for healing throughout the community overall.
Thank you for that response, Mrs. Payne. And then Judge Wright, I will turn over that question to you.
Thank you. Trust in the courts is of great importance to everybody because in order for some of those goals that you were talking about earlier for community safety and interrupting the pipelines to prison and making sure that we're moving the community forward, we have to have trust in our process. When I was district attorney some years ago, I worked very hard to be available to everybody in the community. While I had a job to do, I also had an opportunity to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to be heard. We have to recognize that there are two sides to every case. There's a victim and there's an offender. And both of them have the opportunity to be heard in court, and both of them have rights under Georgia law. The court can't pick a side. I was a prosecutor for years. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm of the same mindset as the prosecution now. I had a job to do, and I did my job. I now have a different job to do, and I have to let the lawyers do their jobs in the courtroom. And so the court's responsibility is to allow every party to be thoroughly heard, for the information to be vetted in an open courtroom, and to make a determination. With regard to cash bail, many of the bails are not set by the Superior Court. They're set by Judge Sims Brown in Magistrate Court or somebody else that's hearing those. And for the court, for the Superior Court to hear a bond, it's either a serious violent felony, the person is already on bond, or the person is already serving a felony sentence somewhere. For meaningful justice reform and overlooked people, people have to participate. They have to show up. They need to have their voices heard. It is my responsibility, my obligation, and quite frankly, my privilege to represent each person in this community. Make no mistake about it. The persons that I served as the attorney for the victim when I was the district attorney were primarily African Americans. We made sure that their voice was being heard, and we provide that same opportunity for them today, regardless of what color they are or where they come from. Criminal behavior, if you truly watch the courts, impacts everybody. We hear about it, we know about it, we care about it. We care about the people who are being impacted by it by living in an area that feels unsafe, by working in an area that feels unsafe. And we want them all to have the same comfort that we desire. And that is to grow up their children happy, healthy, safe, productive, and not have to worry about sending them away. And so, in the form of how does Superior Court work for you, the doors are open. We're here to serve. That is our responsibility. It is my privilege. And I've been proud to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. Okay, so now we're going to do our closing statements. I thank you so much both for being here today. If you're watching this live, you watch this later, please share this out so we can have informed voters. Remember, early voting has already started on Monday. So I appreciate you guys for watching all our forums this week and so forth. So we want to make sure you share this out because you may have this information, but somebody else may need it. So we want you to be an informed voter. So we're going to go with closing statements, and we're just going to change the order around. So Judge Wright, you went last. So now you will go first with your closing statement, and then we'll let Mrs. Payne go last. So you have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be here with you tonight. And I see that there are some questions as well that I'm not sure we'll have an opportunity to answer right now. I am committed to this community, and I am committed to service. It is my belief that we are helping to work together in the community by focusing on the issues, using our integrity and compassion in the courts, and using our opportunities. Over the last 30 years, with my experience, I've had an opportunity to see sort of where the line is drawn between people who frustrate us and people who threaten the safety of our community. And it's the opportunity to have worked with thousands and thousands of cases and hundreds and thousands of people that has allowed me to determine whether the least or the most restrictive method of attack of the sentencing goals is available. There are a lot of opportunities for people to get reformed in the community, and those are valuable and need to be continued. But sometimes we have to stop the behaviors, and there's unfortunately an extreme measure that is sometimes utilized, and that is the prison system. Nonetheless, it's not the method by which most cases are resolved. And I think that it's important for us to use all of the methods. I've tried over 100 jury cases. I've been in the courtrooms. I've seen people. I've seen people get forgiveness. I've seen people give forgiveness. I've seen people heal. I've seen people take their power back and feel safe again as a result of participation in an orderly and meaningful process in the courtroom. I am proud to work in the Superior Courts. I'm proud to work on behalf of the people of this community. I'm proud to be available to them, and I thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm asking for your vote again this year. I'm asking you to continue to entrust me to do the work that I have been asked to do on behalf of this community and been privileged to do for the last 30 years. Thank you for your support. Thank you for watching the forum.
Thank you, Judge Wright. And I'll leave that up to you guys. I'm trying to be respectful of your time because I know you guys have another forum if you do want to answer the questions that are below as well. So that's why I just wanted to make sure we got our questions that we have prepared for you answered. But Mrs. Payne, I want to go ahead and give you a chance to close out your closing statement right now, and you have 3 minutes. Be sure to unmute.
You want me to close before I answer the other questions, or you want me to just go? Okay. All right. Well, I'll just do that then. Well, I appreciate your patience with the technical issues that I had and the timing issues that we started with this afternoon. But I am excited about the opportunity to serve. I am well qualified to serve. And what I would note is that this community is on poised for change. What we've been doing for the past 30 years hasn't been working. And so our community is continuing to be impacted by crime. It is continuing to be impacted by people leaving our community. And so it is important to note that the Superior Court does not only handle the criminal cases, it also handles family cases. And families are not one size fits all. We need to be very mindful that we are not only using the law as a weapon for punishment, but we are using the weapon as a tool to restore and heal when the opportunities are available. And this is not to avoid accountability for those that have committed bad acts, but I do believe that people are not the sum total of the worst decision that they've ever made. And so I believe that as a court system, we need to exercise discretion when it is available. We need to be able to exercise connecting people to the space where they can be more productive and to address the issues that brought them in front of the court, whether that is a family issue, whether that is a addiction issue, so that we can eliminate the issues that are bringing people back and forth. We don't want to see the same people in front of the court over and over again. That could look like changing custody. It could look like additional treatment options. But what is important is that we have someone on the bench that is concerned about those outcomes. Service is not only about going to work and coming home. It is about getting out and being present in the community, about really knowing the people that you are working for. You have an amazing opportunity in front of you, Richmond and Burke County. And if you are looking for change, I am the person for you, and I look forward to serving you as your next Superior Court judge. And I appreciate your vote. Again, get out and vote right now. We can't afford to sit this one out.
Well, thank you both ladies, Judge Wright and Mrs. Payne, so much for dealing with the technical difficulties and getting through the questions. You both did well, and I wish you both good luck during this campaign season. Now, we did get a couple questions from the live audience, and I don't know if you want to have time to answer those, or I'll leave that up to you guys before we continue.
I've tried to join the chat. I'm not able to do that for
Okay.
whatever reason. The question I think that is easiest to answer is what qualifies someone for eligibility for mental health service besides the district attorney selecting them. In order to go into our treatment courts, they have to be clinically eligible as well. We have a provider that screens for those things, for substance use disorder, for the depth of the substance use disorder, as well as for what the mental health needs are. So those are actually medically determined by trained professionals, and you have to have the dual eligibility, not just the legal but also the clinical. We use prior records, we use school records, we use all sorts of different things to identify those. With regard to opening the avenues of help to the public before, and I like that opportunity of doing that. By nature, the court is designed to be reactive and responsive jurisdictionally to problems and requests that are put before it in the form of legal work. So in the courtroom, the opportunity is a little bit different than in the community. And I hope that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you, Judge Wright. Mrs. Payne, is there anything you would like to add to those questions or answering those questions?
I think it's accurate that that we are not able to. I think that the courts resources are not available to the public beforehand, but I think as a person or as a community servant, we can be present. And so as a judge, I can be present and I could continue doing the work that I'm doing, which is educating the community in different capacities and getting out and working with different organizations that are preventative in nature to keep people from coming in front of the court. So it's not necessarily a court resource that we would be opening up to make available to the community, but it is again being engaged with organizations that already exist, being front facing and being proactive as a human being, instead of just waiting until people come in front of you to help and to make decisions about their lives.
So thank you both for joining us. Judge Wright, I will let you go and you can head on to your next forum. I know everybody is so busy. We're trying to, get all the information in so we get out to our constituents that are voting right now. So I thank you ladies so much for joining us. And then Mrs. Payne, if you can stay back, we'll get through the next questions quickly so you can leave. But Judge Wright, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, President West.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
Okay. Mrs. Payne, so let's go to the first question of the forum, and you'll have 3 minutes to respond, and then we'll get you out of here, okay? So how do you define the role of Superior Court judge when it comes to interpreting the law, and where does interpretation end and overreach begin? Please give a concrete example of a situation where you believe judicial discretion is appropriate and one where a judge must set aside personal judgment and strictly follow the law as written.
So I think that we have there's multiple spaces for that. So when we talk about concrete and the role of Superior Court, let's start with, I guess, concrete examples. The role of Superior Court is to make decisions on issues that are presented to it, whether that is in the form of a criminal case that has appeared in front of it, or whether that is in the form of a family law case that has appeared in front of it. What I would say is that you have more discretion in family law cases, but there is some discretion that comes with sentencing. And so when I talk about discretion in the form of sentencing for criminal cases, we're talking about cases that are felonies. But ultimately, there are some charges that carry mandatory minimums. For instance, an armed robbery carries a mandatory minimum of 10 years, but it also can carry up to a life sentence. There's another charge, such as a murder charge, which is very significant because there has been a loss of life, which is a traumatic experience to the families that have lost their family member. And it is also a traumatic experience for the family of the person who's alleged to have committed said act. When there is a conviction for murder, there are two potential sentences, and that is life or life without parole. And when we are talking about a 17-year-old, there is space to make a decision whether life should be imposed or that person, whether or not that person should die in jail. And when we're talking about a life sentence, currently it is 30 years before you're eligible for parole. And that doesn't mean that's a guarantee that you will come home, but it does mean that there is 30 years that that 17-year-old will have to reflect on the decisions that he or she may have made and whether or not they will be making those same decisions moving forward. That is where discretion lies. When we're talking about family law cases, what we're talking about is a child support case or a custody case. And there's the opportunity to be a little bit more creative. There's a standard parenting plan in place right now where the non-primary parent gets every other weekend. Um, but I think overreach would be to, if the parties say we would like an every alternating week to week schedule, for the judge to then step in and say, well, I don't think that you're capable of doing that. And I'm going to exchange my lens for what I think is a better parenting plan for you for what the parties have agreed to. And so I think that is a space where overreach can occur. So if you don't have the framework, if you don't have the familiarity with blended families, raising children, to supplant your personal beliefs for how children should be raised on to another family.
Thank you for that response. Okay, so next question.
Okay.
Augusta has seen a troubling rise in juvenile crime, and many young people who enter our justice system as minors eventually return as adults. What is your philosophy on handling juvenile offenders who appear before your superior court? And what responsibility does a judge have to interpret the pipeline from our neighborhoods to our jails before it becomes a life sentence?
Um, my work has been, when I came to public defense work, I initially thought that I wanted to work with juveniles. I became a public defender because of the work that I had done with children overall. I enjoyed working with at-risk youth. I enjoyed working with underserved populations. And so that has sort of been, working with children and at-risk children has been my life's work overall. And although I am not uh, in juvenile court looking at a juvenile court position, those are appointed and those are not elected positions. But by the time that those children reach superior court, um, there's only a little bit of discretion that is left, and that is typically within sentencing. But sometimes there's opportunities to send some of those more serious cases back to juvenile court for treatment, for resolution. And so, again, my philosophy is to be as present as possible to keep kids from coming into the courtroom to begin with, and that goes to working with organizations. It goes to working with literacy. I've been in River Glen. I've worked with Cherry Tree Crossing. So I work with a literacy program and have been since almost the day that I got here. For 20 years, I've been working with this literacy program to help ensure that children have the tools and skills that they need to derail the school to prison pipeline, because literacy is that foundation of what we're looking at and when they're deciding to build prisons. And so my role, my job is to be present in the community. It's the role that all of us as citizens of the community have. It is to reach out a hand, to be present, and to get off of my couch and to be present, right? It's to get out of the country club and get into the Boys and Girls Club. It is very specifically to be working with the youth to meet them before they even engage with our system so that we can then deter their avenues to the courtroom. Once they get there, we're going to be working to connect them to resources. So we're going to be looking at what were they missing. If we can keep the parents raising their children, raising the kids, we will have better outcomes overall. And so again, we need to be just very mindful about the circumstances that we're placing families in as we're moving forward. But again, we need to be finding ways to heal instead of only to punish.
Thank you for that response. And moving right along to your last question for the evening. Defendants in Richmond County are sitting in Augusta State Medical Prison and the Charles B. Webster Detention Center for months. sometimes years, awaiting trials, often for nonviolent offenses. The backlogs cost taxpayers money, strains families, and undermines the principle that justice delayed is justice denied. What is your honest assessment of why our Superior Court docket has fallen behind? And what specific measurable commitments will you make to Augusta residents in your first year to move cases to resolution faster?
Um, I touched on this briefly already, but we need to be focusing on. So the district attorney has the obligation to bring charges, but how can we move things forward faster? Part of that is going to be, again, to reduce bonds so that people can get out, get back to work. And then we only need to be bringing people in when it's actually time to resolve their cases. So let's have motions calendars. Let's get those motions actually heard, which is going to force officers and force everyone to actually physically be present when they need to be present. We don't need to be wasting time on calendar calls, but also trying cases is not simply going to be the resolution, because even if we tried a case a week for an entire year, that would be 52 cases resolved. That's not going to be sufficient. We have really got to evaluate whether or not the cases are sufficient to move forward and to create space for people who are looking for quick resolutions to move those resolutions forward. That is, again, and so we have 3 or 4 courtrooms that are operating at one time. Trying a case every week is only going to move 150 cases. So we are really going to have to push on scheduling to make sure that we are moving those low level offenses forward faster. We have always prioritized jail cases. But again, we need to be able to resolve those matters, and we need to evaluate if there's officers that are not present. Sometimes we have to make those hard decisions. So if there are motions to suppress that need to be heard and they need to be granted, that is a quick way. If we have officers that are no longer with the office, the district attorney has a good evaluation of those pipelines, but we don't always have to do things just because it's always been done. So if the district attorney's office presents a motion and says we need to move this case or we need to dismiss this case because we don't have enough evidence or because there is an issue with the stop or with the investigation, the judge needs to be able to trust that they are making a good recommendation and allow that to move forward without wasting time for motions that don't need to be heard, because there's a combination of things. Sometimes we're having motions just to have motions because that's how we've always done it, without trusting and honoring that there's a recommendation here that is appropriate. We need to be accepting the plea offers that come from the parties, trusting and know that they have the most information about the facts. And if it is a recommendation that they're making, even if it's one that I may not personally agree with, they have the information, so their recommendation must be a good one. Take it, move forward, and just use your time wisely.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for joining our forum this evening, Mrs. Payne, and thank you for adjusting and everything. So I'll allow you to get off and head on to your next forum. I know you're getting pulled in many directions, so we appreciate you for joining us tonight. So anyone that watches this forum, whatever time you watch it, be sure to share this out. We want to make sure that we have informed voters in our community, and want to remind you here with the Greater Augusta Black Chamber of Commerce. You can go to our website to find out any events we have coming up. But remember, go vote, everyone. Your local elections and your local leaders are going to really matter during this time as we figure out what's happening on a federal level, as you see all the changes that we are going through, but that local is really going to matter. So go vote, go vote, go vote, and share this out. And thank you again for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.